So today I'll talk about the KAT6A, KAT6B patient registry and a little bit of why should we participate in the registry, what kind of information can we get, what kind of information does the registry currently collect for researchers to kind of look at maybe trying to be part of the registry or like us to access the registry, things like that. So I've kind of combined information both for the patients and researchers. I was quickly intro. You guys have all seen the intro for KAT6A and KAT6B, but I'll quickly run through that. So KAT6A gene is in chromosome 8 in humans. So far, the known cases worldwide count to 360 as of yesterday. And the mutations for KAT6A gene have been reported throughout the gene, and you guys have seen all the presentations today covering all of that. So as we're all aware, KAT6A gene phenotypes, patients present with variable phenotype and variable penetrance of the same phenotype. And the late truncating mutations in exon 16 or 17 tend to result in more severe phenotype. Some of the core features of the KAT6A gene mutations include neurodevelopmental defects, microcephaly, intellectual disability, global developmental delay, speech and expressive language defects, gastrointestinal, cardiac anomalies, and some of the more severe phenotypes are affiliated mostly with the late truncating mutations, as I explained. So when we look at the KAT6B gene, KAT6B gene also belongs to the family of histone acetyltransferase, same as KAT6A. It's in chromosome 10 in humans. Known cases worldwide count to 100 so far, and this is a tally through the literature. There's probably more patients, and we see more patients sign up on the Facebook page always, so yeah. Just like KAT6A, mutations for the KAT6B genes have been reported throughout most of the gene. And also there's variability in the phenotype occurrence and penetrance, meaning different individuals with the same phenotype can present with different severity of the same phenotype. Mutation in exon 18, the final exon, are associated with both severe phenotype, most of the times, not always, but some of the core features of KAT6B gene mutations include distinct craniofacial features, neurodevelopmental defects, genitourinary and renal abnormalities, cardiovascular anomalies, and musculoskeletal defects. And as it was covered before, KAT6B patients can be differentiated into two different syndromes, so the GPS syndrome and Odo syndrome, as it was described a couple of talks ago. So let's move on to the KAT6A, KAT6B patient registry. So the KAT6A, KAT6B patient registry was launched in 2019. First, it was called the KAT6A patient registry. Now we just put the KAT6A, KAT6B patient registry live. So this is exciting. It took almost a year and a half since I began. It was a long process. The registry is hosted by NORD, the National Organization for Rare Diseases. So KAT6A, KAT6B patient registry provides a very secure cloud-based platform for patients to put in their data. So so patient families can be confident that the data is protected. And the registry is compliant with US Health and Information Privacy laws and FDA regulations. So it's a really good place to put your data. So the goals of the KAT6A, KAT6B patient registry is to allow participants to store their KAT6 medical data in one place and organize, because oftentimes medical data is like scattered all over the place. So just for you to kind of sit down and fill out the registry, it lets you fill out and kind of combine all of the information in one place. So it's even a learning experience for you when you fill out the registry. The registry serves as a database to enhance understanding of the full range of KAT6-related disorders. It enables researchers to identify trends that can generate new insights and identify areas of additional study. It also allows to disseminate information quickly and securely to researchers and clinicians. And this all helps guide the development of standards of care. And for diseases like KAT6A and KAT6B that are very rare, with just like a few hundred patients worldwide, it's very important for us to have a place where data is stored, data can be accessed, so we can find new trends, just increase our understanding, because we're all learning from one another in the foundation. And with the patients, the scientists, all of us, we need to kind of work together to be able to increase our understanding of these diseases. The other goal is to expedite the completion of KAT6 clinical trials as well. So when we look at the current setup of the registry, so I'll just walk you through what kind of information is covered in each of these surveys. So there are 12 surveys total. There used to be 5 surveys before, but we expanded it to make 12 shorter surveys. So this is, I kind of give this more towards the researchers to be able to see what kind of information we're collecting, so you can assess if you want to try to request access to the registry. So getting started covers, I can't actually see the top. It's just like mutation details, things like that. Diagnosis captures date of diagnosis, test performed, any record of like if patients have like been published or reported in some sort of publication. Birth and family history captures birth weight, head circumference, like details like that, fetal abnormalities, if the child was born after any fertility treatment, medical history, family history, and whether the child spent any time in the NICU. For their neurological data, we collect information on whether patients have any kind of seizures, neuromuscular weakness, questions on developmental milestones, language milestones, neurodevelopmental conditions, conditions like ADD and ADHD. For immune system, questions on allergies, vaccination records, blood test results, metabolic abnormalities, mitochondrial abnormalities, autoimmune conditions. Other conditions include heart, thyroid, digestive, respiratory, kidney, bladder condition, hospitalizations, like how often, when, that kind of stuff, hearing, ear issues, sleep disorders, vision issues, distinctive facial features. So you can kind of see how detailed of information is available in the registry as of right now as well. With the medical history, you can access weight, height, vaccine record like pneumonia, last routine checkup or doctor visit records, medication, what kind of medications have been used, how frequently, what kind, also surgery, therapy, physical, speech, and occupational therapy, options that have been used, and if these patients have been involved in any previous research. Medical report covers genetic medical report, genetic report, any other medical report, any of that. Patients can just upload their report directly. Sociodemographic information covers country of residence, education, racial designation, and the 2 quality of life surveys. So there's pediatric for young children, and there's quality of life adult for adult patients. So this covers hearing, feeling, vision, like how they function daily, self-care, mobility, communication, physical health. And part 2 follows up with behavioral readings. So as you can see, I geared this slide mostly towards the researchers to kind of show what kind of information we have collected. This might seem overwhelming, but to patient families, I'll tell you, like, these are pretty short surveys. Most of these surveys are pretty short, and I'll kind of show you that in a bit. But for patient families who want to start filling out the patient registry, some of the things that you want to have handy before you sit down to fill out the registry is the genetic diagnosis, to be able to just have these materials in hand to start filling out the patient registry. So genetic diagnosis, medical record, any medications and supplements use, amount uses, purpose of them, and information on hospitalizations, and information on all the current health issues, and current therapy programs. So once you have that, it's not as overwhelming. As you can see, these surveys that are boxed in greens have 5 to 10 questions. So these particular surveys, like almost half of the surveys can be filled out within like 15 minutes or so, and then there are more longer ones, the rest. But yeah, it's not too overwhelming once you actually start filling out the surveys. So what I have discovered since I joined the foundation, also with my own experience, is that analyzing of the data from the registry can give us new insights. And as a scientist myself, I can just like, there's so much data, it's so rich. So and we should be able to like continue collecting those to benefit the patient families. And so what I found out is that, so since I joined, besides recruiting patient families to fill out the registry, I've also been analyzing some of the registry data, and it's very interesting to see that sharing data with patient families increases patient participation in the registry. So we've been active with like Facebook posts and exchanges, and I think it just shows that we're all scientists in a way, and like parents and families, you all spend so much time with patients. You have such unique insights that we don't have. So having your perspective come into the equation of understanding the disease is super important, and the registry is the place to put in your thoughts and your information that you have. Yeah, so like I said, insights from parents and patients are valuable for us to better understand these disorders. So next I'll walk you through some of the data that I have analyzed and shared in the Facebook pages in a way that's like easy to follow. And we have seen increase in patient participation as a result of these data that was analyzed with the registry data. So I'm just showing you a few results that we have that I'm working on making a story eventually at some point, but for now, just to see, like, it can be interesting and cool. So 64% of patients have hyphen tolerance. Here you can see another graph where you can see the GI disorders, the gastrointestinal disorders, more nuanced, like split of all the different common GI disorders. 50% have reflux, 44% constipation, 33% have gagging, retching, vomiting, 22% feeding tubes, require feeding tubes, things like that. So when we look at neurodevelopmental disorders, we can see that almost 80% of patients have global developmental delay, 19% have been diagnosed with autism, 11% have sensory processing disorder, and 7% have auditory processing disorder. Oh, and one thing I forgot to put in the slide, as of today, there are 260 total participants in the registry, and that includes mostly KAT6A patients, but we're starting to see KAT6B patients, and I hope to see more KAT6B patients, because this data right here is all for KAT6A, but as we get more KAT6B patients participate, we'll be able to do this type of analysis for KAT6B patients as well. Did the patient spend time in the NICU? Almost 60% of the patients did spend time in the NICU when they were born. Some of the newer data I looked at, so the issues at birth that we saw with the KAT6A patients, according to the registry, 46% had hypotonia, 35% respiratory problems, 28% microcephaly, 12% jaundice, and 31% no issues. And the other interesting finding that I just analyzed recently is that 20% of patients have ADD or ADHD. So as you can see, the richness of the data here and the potential for finding new information. What's also like the down the road possibility is we can also look at overlap of like all these different symptoms with, let's say, the type of mutations versus what type of mutation correlates more with some of these phenotypes. So there is a lot that can be done with like analyzing the registry data. For the future direction for the registry, we want to continue increasing patient participation in the KAT6A, KAT6B patient registry, continue analyzing patient registry data to learn more about KAT6 disorders and identify new trends. We want to continue to share findings with you, patients. You're important in this whole process. And the near future direction is to hopefully publish some of these data out in the scientific journal to advance science and research collaboration. So I once again want to ask all the patients to take their time to fill out the KAT6A, KAT6B patient registry. It's really worth your time. And if you have any questions, you can always reach out to me on Facebook or send me an email. For researchers who want to access the patient registry, the patient registry might not be end-all be-all data set for you, but you might identify some direction for you to further pursue or find patient families that might be useful for your research, things like that. So how do you request access to the patient registry? You email kat6aregistry@gmail.com. The foundation will review requests from researchers for access to de-identified patient data. And all of the data we share is de-identified patient data because we value patient privacy. And so all of this process will be followed in agreement with the standards set by NORD and the IRB. And with that, I'd like to thank you for your time. Thank you for filling out the registry before and in the future as well. And if you'd like to access the registry, you can scan the QR code. If we can just leave this, because I think I'm the last speaker. Okay, yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Bhawika. I have one question, maybe for you or any of the other researchers. Just can you explain very briefly, like the role the registry would play if there is a future drug trial that the community could enter? Like what does the registry provide for that, and what does the FDA want from the registry, or what does the FDA expect?
That's a good question. I think to me, as of right now, like I've not been directly involved in any clinical trials, but just the fact that we have a list of patients with like very organized information and actual symptoms, like, you know, you have an ID associated with the patient and you can see all the different phenotypes. They, like some have gastrointestinal defect, for example. So if there's a clinical trial for a gastrointestinal defect specific medication, so we can pull out that fraction of patients and choose and maybe try to communicate with that particular pool of patients to further the research. So that's one possibility. But I think if and when we do get to the part, we will have to actively work with NORD too, the National Organization for Rare Diseases, who they monitor the whole registry, and they're very strict with like what we do and how we communicate. So yeah, but that's definitely like just having information there, I think, provides us the platform to be able to ask questions when we need. So yeah.
Okay, thanks. Other questions for Bhawika about the registry?
For KAT6 cases right now? Do you have a number for the KAT6B cases?
Oh, cases. So the cases I have right now for KAT6B is through literature counting, which is 100. But I just joined the KAT6B support group, so I'm going to start tallying numbers from there. But since the KAT6A, KAT6B patient registry, the new registry that's very inclusive of the KAT6B patients, went live, we are seeing increase in numbers. So if I have to guess, I would say probably like 20 to 30 out of 260 right now in the registry. So yeah, we would definitely love to see more KAT6B patients to be able to get more data to analyze.
I was wondering what percentage of international patients are registered, outside of the US?
That's a great question. I don't have the number, but what I have noticed, which is quite obvious, like the correlation between identified patients and like accessibility of the whole exome sequencing data. So it's mostly Europe, US, Australia, and some South American countries, and some like maybe Japan, Korea, China. So it's very limited to like the developed countries right now, all the data. But the highest number of patients is from the US. I don't have the exact numbers, but yeah.
So what can you do to reach people?
Outside. I think for me, what's worked is putting out data, like what I showed you, just like, yeah, showing data. So and kind of describing things and in an easy way possible, so patients feel like they are included and they're important. In terms of like, I think in terms of reaching to a broader audience, what we don't have right now and what I think would be really important is like some sort of translation option, like, how Facebook has, like, if you have, it translates. So if, hypothetically speaking, like the registry could be translated into any language, that would just open so many doors. So, like, I'm international, so it pains me to see, like, people, because their language is not English, they're limited. So yeah, I think some sort of translation service would be amazing, but I don't know how soon that's going to be.
Okay, again. I'm a Dean through the American College of Gastroenterology. We're trying to, and the Liver Society of this country, trying to let physicians know about conditions such as the alcoholic, non-alcoholic disease, for instance, the need for colonoscopy, age 45 instead of 50. See, this is not necessarily transmitted to primary care, but that's what they see these people. They run second liver studies and they don't know what to do with this. So I think that physicians should be the ones that, I don't know, pediatricians, neurologists, psychiatrists should be aware of this effort that you put.
That sounds good. Thank you.
One thing we did very early on is to talk to the diagnostic testing centers. So if they generate a positive mutation report for KAT6A, like by request, can we make sure they also transmit information about its foundation or the registry itself? So in delivering the diagnosis, you also get information to go and start joining the community. Sorry, your question.
Hi, I'm Naila, Liam's mom, and we're coming from Belgium. I know that I have filled out the form online. I just had one question because I did it already 2 years ago. So I suppose we have to update it.
Yeah.
And also, indeed, French families from France have difficulties in completing it because it's in English. And I've tried to help them out, but it's a bit discouraging for them. So maybe a French translation, and I can perhaps give a help on that if it's needed.
That'd be great. In terms of like the yearly, so the surveys are set to be longitudinal, so you do get a reminder every year to go back and refill the surveys. It would be amazing. I wish I spoke multiple, I do speak a few, but I wish I spoke lots of languages so we could help out. But some sort of like automated system would be great, like a translation service, so we could actually reach more, allow more people to participate. Yeah.
Other questions?
I just have a question about the numbers that we have and how like just speaking from like a data science perspective, is that enough to get a good read on things, or does it take thousands of participants to really get a good read on that?
I think like rare disease, we're always going to be limited by the number of patients, but as far as I can see, like compared to what's been published out there in literature for both KAT6A and KAT6B, the sample size we have right now is like one of the best, because I'm reaching like about 100 fully filled out surveys for KAT6A. Like there are 260 patients right now that are registered, but they are like at different steps of the registry filling out process. But like full on data, there are 100 at least patients right now. So that's a really good data set to assess a bunch of these phenotypes. And because it's a rare disease, we will have to work with what we have, and maybe someday whole exome sequencing will be more broadly available, or some new tests, and we'll get more patients. But yeah.
On the topic of new tests, Amy writes and said that you can ask for an intellectual disability panel, which is a shorter amount of it's a shorter genetic screening, but KAT6A was recently added to that panel, and it's a much less expensive test. Yeah, so somehow I think we have to put that word, I mean, hopefully that will just generate more people, but
Yeah,
yeah.
that's cool. Thank you.
And honestly, for participation rate, word of mouth, like ours is fantastic. When you look across both rare disease and non-rare disease communities, our registry satisfaction rate is really high. So it's been great work by the community to date. Word of mouth and peer pressure is probably the most effective way of getting, so particularly for folks internationally, like oftentimes we need that one like belly button family in that foreign country who knows that local community best to really drive survey completion and participation. So I think maybe as a community or as the foundation, we just need to look for those key families in different countries and really make a direct ask for them to marshal support. Yeah. And maybe translation as well.
I do know, like right now there is a total of 11 families in China, but that's like we don't have a way to like communicate with them and kind of ask them to fill out the registry because we don't. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you all.